The day my father gave me that broken country house, everyone laughed, except me. They thought he was ruining my future. What they didn't know was that 5 years later, the same house would become the reason my father couldn't even look me in the eye. People say family is supposed to support you, that blood means loyalty, that a father should want his son to succeed. Maybe that's true for most people, but not for me. My father spent my whole life making sure I knew exactly where I stood. At the bottom, always at the bottom. My name is Daniel Harper, and growing up in my family felt like standing outside a giant glass window. I could see the warmth, I could see the praise, I could see the love. But somehow, it was never for me. My older brother Ethan, he was the golden child. Everything Ethan did was amazing. If he got average grades, my father called him naturally gifted. If I got perfect grades, Dad would shrug and say, "That's what you're supposed to do." Ethan crashed a car at 19. Dad called it a mistake. I forgot to mow the lawn once. Dad called me lazy. Funny how rules change depending on who people love. By the time I turned 30, I had stopped trying to win my father over. Not because I didn't care, because I was tired. Tired of proving myself. Tired of hearing how I wasn't enough. Tired of sitting at family dinners feeling invisible. And most of all, tired of pretending it didn't hurt. Still, I stayed close to the family. Why? Because somewhere deep inside, there's always that little kid hoping maybe this time things will be different. Maybe this time Dad will finally say, "I'm proud of you." Spoiler alert, he never did. Instead, he laughed. The day he handed me that house, he laughed. It started with one phone call. "Dad wants everyone at the estate this Saturday," Ethan said. His voice already sounded smug, like he knew something I didn't. "Why?" I asked. "No idea," he replied. Then he chuckled. "But wear something decent. Sounds important." The call ended, and somehow I already had a bad feeling. You know that feeling? Like something unpleasant is waiting for you? Like your stomach knows before your brain catches up? That's what I felt. Still, I went. Because no matter how many times my family disappointed me, some stupid part of me still hoped. Saturday morning arrived gray and cold. The Harper estate looked exactly how it always had. Huge, perfect, cold. A mansion so big it never felt like a home. The driveway curved around marble fountains my father cared about more than people. Luxury cars lined the front. Ethan's new sports car. My stepmother Victoria's SUV. Even my younger sister Claire had upgraded to some expensive electric car Dad probably paid for. And me? I parked my old pickup truck near the side. Like always, out of sight. I walked inside. The smell of expensive coffee hit me immediately. Voices echoed through the dining room. Laughter. Of course. Everyone already seemed comfortable, like they belonged. "Daniel," Claire said. Then she hugged me quickly. Claire was the only person in the family who treated me like an actual human being. "You okay?" she whispered. That question caught me off guard. Why wouldn't I be? She hesitated, then looked away. That tiny moment, I noticed it. And suddenly, that bad feeling got worse. Something was happening. Something I wasn't prepared for. Then my father entered the room. Richard Harper. Tall, sharp suit, perfect silver hair. The kind of man who could walk into a room and make everyone sit straighter. He built one of the biggest construction companies in the state. People respected him, feared him, admired him. Outside the house, he was known as a genius. Inside, he could be cruel in ways people never saw. "Good," he said, glancing around. Everyone's here. No smile, no greeting, just business. Typical. Victoria sat beside him with that polished fake smile she always wore. I never trusted her. She entered our lives 2 years after my mom passed away, and somehow, everything changed after that, especially how my father treated me, almost like somebody was whispering poison in his ear. We sat. Coffee was poured. Nobody really talked. The tension felt weird, heavy. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. I've been thinking about the future, he said. The room went silent. My health isn't getting younger. Victoria touched his arm dramatically. Oh, Richard, don't say that. He ignored her. I've decided to begin organizing family assets. Ethan leaned forward instantly. Of course he did. Money always made Ethan pay attention. Dad continued. The company will eventually go to Ethan. Nobody looked surprised. Not even me. I expected it. Honestly, I'd made peace with that years ago. Construction had always been Ethan's thing. Or at least, Dad made sure it became Ethan's thing. Claire got several rental properties. Victoria looked pleased. Then Dad turned toward me. And suddenly, the room felt different. Like people were waiting for something uncomfortable. Daniel, he said slowly, I have something for you as well. Ethan smirked. Actually smirked. That should have been my warning. Dad slid a folder across the table. I opened it. At first, I thought it was a joke. A property deed. An address I didn't recognize. I frowned. What is this? Dad leaned back. The old country house. Silence. Then Ethan laughed. Actually laughed. Claire looked uncomfortable. Victoria hid a smile behind her coffee cup. And that's when I realized, oh, this wasn't generosity. This was entertainment. The place is falling apart, Ethan said. You remember it, right? I vaguely did. An old family property almost 3 hours outside the city. Nobody visited anymore. Roof damaged, land ignored, practically abandoned. Dad crossed his arms. You always wanted independence. His voice had that tone, the one he used when pretending to be kind. Well, there you go. Then he smiled, not warmly, coldly. You can finally build something of your own. More laughter. My chest tightened, because suddenly, I understood. This wasn't inheritance. This was humiliation. A message. You're not worth real investment. You get scraps. I looked down at the paperwork. The property photos looked awful. Broken porch, cracked walls, overgrown weeds. A disaster. You're serious? I asked quietly. Dad raised an eyebrow. Should I not be? Ethan chuckled again. Come on, Dan. Maybe there's treasure buried out there. Victoria laughed. Claire didn't. She looked angry. But nobody said anything. And then came the sentence I'll never forget. Dad looked me directly in the eye. If you fail with this, he shrugged. At least nobody can say I didn't give you something. That hit harder than I expected. Because suddenly, I wasn't 30 anymore. I was 10. Standing in the kitchen while Dad praised Ethan and forgot I existed. I was 16. Listening to him explain why Ethan deserved a new car, but I needed to learn responsibility. I was 22, graduating college with honors, only for him to skip the ceremony because Ethan had a golf tournament. All of it came rushing back. Every disappointment, every rejection, every moment I wasn't enough. And everyone around the table just sat there, watching, waiting for my reaction. Maybe they expected anger, maybe embarrassment, maybe for me to storm out. But something strange happened instead. I smiled, a small one, quiet, and for the first time in years, I stopped caring what my father thought. I closed the folder. "Okay," I said. The room went quiet. Dad frowned slightly. "Okay?" I nodded. "I'll take it." Ethan blinked. "Seriously?" "Yup." Dad narrowed his eyes, almost disappointed, like I ruined the moment. "Fine," he said. "Then it's yours." And just like that, the conversation moved on. But I barely heard anything after that, because something inside me had shifted. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to prove him wrong anymore. I just wanted peace. And weirdly enough, that broken house felt like freedom. I had no idea then. That house was hiding secrets, secrets my father never expected anyone to uncover. And when I finally stepped onto that property 2 weeks later, I realized something terrifying. The house wasn't abandoned. Someone had been there, recently, and they clearly didn't want me around. 3 days after my father handed me that broken country house like it was some kind of punishment, I finally decided to see it for myself. Not because I was excited. Honestly, I expected disappointment. I expected rotting wood, broken windows, maybe a roof ready to collapse. What I didn't expect was the strange feeling sitting in my chest the entire drive there. Like something about that place mattered. Like somehow, even though I had never cared about the property before, it was waiting for me. That probably sounds ridiculous. I know. But when your whole life feels like rejection, even something broken starts to feel personal, especially when it's the only thing anybody ever gave you. The drive took almost 3 hours. The city slowly disappeared behind me. Tall buildings turned into long highways, then highways turned into quiet roads lined with trees. The farther I drove, the quieter everything became. No traffic, no phones ringing, no family drama, just silence. And for the first time in a while, I could breathe. My father always hated quiet. He liked noise, meetings, power. People constantly reminded him how important he was. But me? I liked peace. Maybe because I never got much of it growing up. I stopped at a small gas station halfway there, the kind of place that looked frozen in time. Old signs, dusty windows, a tired man behind the register drinking coffee like he'd been awake for days. When I walked in, he glanced at me. "You heading north?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Country property out near Willow Creek." The man paused. His expression changed, just for a second. "You talking about Harper Place?" That caught me off guard. "You know it?" He let out a strange little laugh. "Everybody around here knows it." I smiled awkwardly. "Good or bad?" His face turned serious. "Depends who you ask." Then he looked outside like he suddenly regretted speaking. "You staying there?" "Maybe," I said. He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "People don't really go near that property much." "Why?" He shrugged. "Stories." I almost laughed. "Ghost stories?" He shook his head. "No." Then he leaned closer. "People coming and going at weird hours." My smile disappeared. "What kind of people?" "Don't know. But folks around here mind their business." He rang up my coffee, then added quietly, "If I were you, I'd lock my doors." Great. Exactly what I needed. A creepy warning before arriving at my ruined inheritance. Still, I brushed it off. Small towns love rumors. Probably teenagers drinking out there or people trespassing. Nothing serious. At least that's what I told myself. An hour later, I turned onto a narrow dirt road. The GPS signal disappeared almost immediately. Trees stretched endlessly around me. Everything felt isolated, too isolated. Then finally, I saw it. And honestly, the pictures didn't even do justice to how bad it looked. The house sat at the end of a long, overgrown driveway like something forgotten by time. Paint peeling, windows cracked, roof sagging slightly on one side. Tall grass everywhere. The porch looked like one strong wind could knock it over. I parked the truck and just sat there for a minute, staring. My father really hated me. That thought hit harder now, because seeing it in person felt different. This wasn't some rough property with potential. No, this place looked abandoned for years, like something nobody wanted, something people gave up on. Funny enough, that felt familiar. I got out of the truck. The silence around the house felt strange, heavy. No birds, no nearby traffic, nothing, just wind moving through trees. I walked toward the porch carefully. Wood creaked beneath my boots. The front door looked ancient. The lock barely held together. I inserted the key from the folder Dad gave me. The door opened with a loud groan. Dust hit me instantly. The inside looked frozen in time. Old furniture covered in white sheets, broken lamps, cracks spreading through walls, a smell of old wood and damp air. And somehow, it didn't feel completely abandoned. I know that sounds weird, but abandoned places feel dead. This place? It felt watched, like someone had been there recently. I stepped deeper inside. Floorboards creaked loudly. The living room sat untouched except for thick dust. An old fireplace, bookshelves, faded wallpaper peeling from corners. Then I noticed something strange. A coffee mug, fresh, not dusty, sitting near the kitchen sink. I stopped walking. My stomach tightened. That didn't make sense. Nobody lived here, right? Slowly I walked closer. The mug still had dried coffee stains inside. Not years old. Recent. Very recent. Then I noticed footprints. Mud. Near the back door. Someone had definitely been here. Recently. And suddenly, the creepy gas station guy didn't sound so crazy anymore. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Of course. Perfect. Hello? I called out. Nothing. Silence. Then, a sound upstairs. A soft creak. I froze. Maybe old houses settle, right? Wood shifts. Wind. Animals. That's normal. Then I heard it again. A footstep. Slow. Heavy. Definitely upstairs. Every instinct told me to leave. Immediately. But another part of me, the stubborn part, wanted answers. This was my house now. Or at least, the closest thing I had to one. I grabbed an old flashlight from my truck and headed upstairs. Each step creaked under my weight. The hallway looked worse than downstairs, doors hanging crooked, dust everywhere. Except one room, at the end of the hall. The door was slightly open, and unlike everything else, that room looked cleaner. Too clean. I pushed the door open slowly. Empty, but lived in. A blanket, an old chair, food wrappers. Someone had absolutely been staying there. My pulse started racing. Who? Why? And why in my father's abandoned property? Then I noticed something on the floor. A metal box. Locked. Old. Covered in scratches. I crouched beside it. No label. No markings. Just old metal. Weird. Very weird. Then, a voice behind me. You shouldn't be here. I turned so fast I nearly slipped. Standing in the doorway was an older man, late 60s maybe, tall, thin, rough face, gray beard, wearing work boots and an old jacket. And somehow, He looked more surprised than I was. "What the hell?" I said. He stared at me. Then his eyes narrowed. "You Richard's son?" My stomach dropped. "How do you know my father?" The man looked annoyed. "Because I worked this land for 20 years. That confused me instantly. "Worked here?" He nodded. "Caretaker." I frowned. My dad never mentioned a caretaker. The old man laughed bitterly. "Doesn't surprise me." He stepped inside slowly. "Name's Walter." I stayed tense. "You living here?" "Sometimes." He shrugged. "Roof over my head." "Your father stopped paying me years ago." Now nothing made sense. "Wait, you worked for my father?" Walter looked at me for a long moment, then sighed heavily. "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" He glanced toward the window, like debating whether to speak, then finally said, "Your father didn't give you this place because it was worthless." My heart slowed. "What do you mean?" Walter crossed his arms. "Because this land?" He pointed outside. "It's worth millions." Silence. I stared at him. "What?" He nodded slowly. "Developers been trying to buy it for years. That creek nearby? New highway expansion coming. Hotels. Resorts. Big money." I laughed nervously. "No. No way. If that were true, Dad never would have given it to me." Walter's expression darkened. "That's exactly why something feels wrong." Then he lowered his voice. "Because your father wanted this place hidden." A chill moved through me. "Hidden?" Walter looked upstairs, then back at me. "You should ask yourself something. If this place is worthless, why did your father keep ownership for all these years?" I had no answer, because suddenly, nothing added up anymore. And for the first time, I started wondering whether my father's cruel joke wasn't a joke at all. Maybe. He gave me this house for a reason he hoped I'd never discover. Then Walter looked toward the locked metal box, and his face changed instantly. Pale. Concerned. "Where'd you find that?" "Right here." He stepped back. "No. No. No." "What?" Walter swallowed hard. "That box shouldn't be here." Before I could ask another question, we both heard it. A vehicle outside. Not one. Two. Doors slamming. Voices. Men's voices. Walter suddenly looked terrified. "They found out you came." "What?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "Don't speak. Whatever happens, don't tell them what you found." Then heavy footsteps started moving toward the front door, and whoever was outside didn't sound friendly. The sound of boots crunching outside froze me where I stood. Not one person, at least 3, maybe 4. Heavy footsteps, slow, confident, like people who already believed they belonged there. Walter's face had completely changed. A minute ago, he looked irritated. Now, he looked scared, the kind of scared that only comes from experience, the kind that says, "I've seen this before." He moved quickly toward the bedroom door and lowered his voice. "Listen carefully." "What's going on?" I whispered. "No time." He pointed toward the locked metal box. "Don't mention that." "Why?" His eyes darted toward the hallway. "Because if they know you found it." He stopped himself, then muttered, "Just trust me." "Trust him?" I had known this man for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, strangers were walking into my property like they owned it. Honestly, I was one bad decision away from getting back in my truck and driving 3 hours home. Then again, home to what? An empty apartment? A father who mocked me? A family dinner where I got treated like furniture? No. Something about this place already felt personal. And if someone wanted me gone that badly, there had to be a reason. The front door downstairs opened. No knock, just opened. Like whoever entered didn't care about permission. A deep voice echoed through the house. "Walter!" Another voice laughed. "Told you somebody was here." Walter cursed quietly. They weren't supposed to come today. "Who are they?" I asked. He looked at me. "Men who ask questions later." That wasn't comforting at all. More footsteps downstairs. Then a voice again. "Walter, quit hiding." A pause. "We saw the truck." Walter straightened up, then sighed heavily. "All right. But you stay quiet." He stepped into the hallway. I followed. Mostly because standing alone in a creepy upstairs room sounded worse. We slowly walked downstairs. My heart pounded harder with every step. 3 men stood in the living room. Big guys, work jackets, mud-covered boots, the kind of faces that looked permanently annoyed. One of them stood near the fireplace, tall, broad shoulders, buzz cut, the kind of guy who looked like smiling physically hurt him. Another leaned against the wall chewing gum. The third looked younger, but nervous. Buzz-cut guy looked up first. His eyes landed on me instantly and narrowed. "Well," he smiled. "Who's this?" Walter didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched too long. Finally, I stepped forward. "Daniel Harper." The room shifted. Tiny reactions. Quick looks exchanged. Buzz-cut guy slowly nodded. "Richard Harper's kid." Not a question. A statement. "How do you know my father?" I asked. He smirked. "Everybody knows Richard Harper." Something about the way he said it felt off. Not respect. More like irritation. Then his eyes moved toward the paperwork folder in my hand. "You own this place now?" "Yeah." He sighed dramatically. "Well, that complicates things." I crossed my arms. "What things?" The younger guy shifted awkwardly. Buzzcut didn't answer right away. Instead, he slowly walked around the room like he was thinking. "You planning on staying?" "Maybe." That answer clearly annoyed him. He stopped walking, then smiled again. Except this smile felt fake, cold. "Here's some free advice. This house isn't safe. Lot of problems around here. Wildlife, break-ins, bad roads." He shrugged. "Best thing you could do? Sell it." Ah, there it was. Now we were getting somewhere. "How much?" I asked. Walter quietly muttered under his breath, too quiet for them to hear, but I caught it. "Don't." Buzzcut guy smiled wider. 50,000. I almost laughed. Even I knew land this size was worth more than that, even in terrible condition. "You drove all the way out here," I said slowly, "to offer me 50 grand? His smile faded. "Young man, I'm trying to help." "No," I replied. "You're trying to buy something cheap." Silence. The room suddenly felt smaller. The younger guy looked uncomfortable. Buzzcut's expression hardened. "I'd think carefully." "About what?" He stepped closer. "About making life difficult for yourself." Walter shifted immediately. "Leave it alone, Briggs." Briggs. So now I had a name. Briggs looked annoyed. "You stay out of this." Walter didn't move. "This property belongs to him now." Briggs laughed. Legally? Sure. Then his eyes returned to me. But ownership doesn't always mean control. Okay. That sounded way too much like a threat. I should have been scared. Honestly, I was. But something else was happening too. Anger. Because for once, something was mine. And suddenly people showed up trying to push me around. Funny how nobody wanted me until I had something valuable. No, I said. The room went quiet. Briggs tilted his head. No? I'm not selling. His jaw tightened slightly. You sure? Very. Long silence. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled again. Fine. He held his hands up. No pressure. But if you change your mind. He reached into his pocket and tossed a business card onto the table. Call me. He turned toward the door. The other men followed. But before leaving, Briggs stopped, looked back, then said something that made my stomach turn. Oh, one more thing. He glanced upstairs. You should stay out of rooms that aren't yours. Then they left. Silence. Complete silence. The sound of engines faded outside. I turned to Walter immediately. What the hell was that? Walter looked exhausted. Told you. They don't want people here. Who are they? He rubbed his forehead. Developers. Middlemen. Men hired to make problems disappear. I frowned. For who? Walter hesitated. Too long. That hesitation said everything. My father? Walter looked away, and that silence answered the question. I felt sick. No. No way. Why would my dad send people here? Walter sighed. Because Richard's been trying to keep something buried. The words hit hard. What exactly are you saying? He looked toward the window again. Your father's been rejecting offers on this land for years. Millions. Maybe more now. Then why give it to me? Walter hesitated, then finally said, because he thought you'd fail. That hurt. Because deep down, I knew it was true. Walter continued. You'd sell fast. Cheap. Probably to people connected to him. Problem solved. Suddenly, everything clicked together. The humiliation, the laughter, the fake generosity. Dad didn't give me freedom. He gave me a trap. He expected me to struggle, to panic, to take the first offer, and hand everything right back into whatever plan he was hiding. Something hot settled in my chest. Not sadness this time. Anger. Real anger. Because for 30 years, I had let him define me. The weak son, the failure, the disappointment. Maybe for the first time in my life, I wanted to win. Not for revenge, not yet. Just to prove, finally, that I wasn't stupid. I looked around the house again. Broken walls, dust, silence. And suddenly, I saw potential. Not failure. Potential. Then I remembered something. The box. I turned toward the staircase. What's inside it? Walter's expression changed instantly. No. No? You shouldn't open it. That answer made me want to open it even more. Why? He hesitated, then lowered his voice. Because your father never wanted anybody finding it. That sentence hit me like ice water. What's in it? Walter swallowed. I don't know exactly. But years ago, he stopped, thinking. Richard came here late at night, more than once, with lawyers, boxes, documents. He always used that upstairs room. A chill ran through me. You think it's evidence? Walter looked uncomfortable. I think rich people hide secrets. And your father? He paused. Your father hid something here. The sun outside was already dropping. The house suddenly felt darker, smaller, like the walls themselves were listening. Part of me wanted to leave, drive away, forget everything. But another part, the part that had spent 30 years overlooked, couldn't stop thinking one thing. What if this house is the first truth I've ever been given? I went upstairs. Walter followed reluctantly. The metal box still sat on the floor, old, scratched, heavy. I crouched beside it again, locked. But old locks break, especially when people underestimate how stubborn you are. 10 minutes later, after fighting with rust and an old screwdriver from my truck, the lock snapped. Walter looked nervous. You really shouldn't. I lifted the lid and froze. Inside wasn't money, or jewelry, or property papers. No, it was worse, way worse. Files, stacks of them, legal documents, photos, and right on top, a thick folder with one name written across it. Harper Development, Confidential. My father's company. My hands suddenly felt cold. Walter stared. Oh no. I opened the folder. The first page made my stomach drop instantly, because right there, in black and white, was proof that my father had signed deals connected to land acquisitions, using fake names, fake companies, and one property listed again and again. This property, the house he mocked, the house he wanted me to throw away. Then I saw something even worse. A page clipped underneath, a payment log, large amounts of money, hundreds of thousands, sent to someone named B. Briggs. The same man who stood in my living room an hour ago. I looked at Walter. Neither of us spoke. Because suddenly, this wasn't a family drama anymore. This was something bigger, something hidden. And if my father knew I found this, I had a feeling he wouldn't stay quiet. Then, headlights flashed outside again. A car, fast, coming up the driveway. Walter looked terrified. No, not tonight. What now? He looked at me, voice barely above a whisper. If that's who I think it is, you need to hide those papers. Right now. The car door slammed, and a voice outside shouted, Daniel! I froze, because I recognized it instantly. My father. The moment I heard my father's voice outside, my chest tightened. Not because I was happy to see him, because something felt wrong, very wrong. Richard Harper didn't drive 3 hours to a broken country house for family bonding. He barely called me on birthdays. He never showed up without a reason. And judging by the panic on Walter's face, this reason mattered. A lot. Hide the papers, Walter whispered sharply. Now. My hands moved before my brain caught up. I shoved the folders back into the metal box. Too loud, too messy. Panic makes you clumsy. No, Walter hissed. Not there. He grabbed the stack quickly, then pulled aside a loose wooden panel near the wall. I blinked. There's a compartment? Old houses have secrets, he muttered. He shoved the files inside, covered them, then stood, just in time. Heavy footsteps entered downstairs, slow, measured, confident, the kind of footsteps from someone used to controlling every room they entered. My father. Even after all these years, I recognized that sound instantly. "You hear?" he shouted. Silence. Then another voice. "Victoria." Of course. Perfect. Like things weren't bad enough. "Richard," she called, her voice irritated. "This place smells awful." Funny. That house smelled more honest than most dinners at their mansion. Walter glanced at me. "Say nothing." Before I could answer, footsteps started climbing the stairs, and suddenly, there he was. My father stopped in the doorway. Perfect coat, expensive watch, same cold expression. Except this time, he looked tense. Behind him stood Victoria, already looking disgusted by everything. Her eyes landed on me, then immediately scanned the room, almost searching. That tiny detail? I noticed it. My father folded his arms. "You're here." No greeting. No, "How are you?" Typical. "Looks like it," I replied. His eyes narrowed slightly, like he didn't appreciate the tone. Then his attention shifted toward Walter. "You still around?" Walter stayed calm. "Hard to leave when someone forgets to pay." Victoria sighed dramatically. "Can we not do this?" Dad ignored her, then looked back at me. "You should have answered your phone." I frowned. "You called?" He paused, briefly, too briefly. I tried. Lie. My phone had nothing, not even a missed call. Already, something felt off. He glanced around the room again, then asked casually, "Find anything interesting?" Too casual. Way too casual. There it was. That question. That hidden tension. Suddenly I understood. He wasn't here for me. He was here because he thought I found something. I kept my face neutral. "Like what?" His jaw tightened. "Anything unusual?" Walter looked away, trying not to react. My father noticed. Of course he noticed. He noticed everything.
"What happened here earlier?" he asked. I crossed my arms. Some guy named Briggs showed up. That got a reaction. Tiny, but real. Victoria shifted instantly. Dad's expression hardened for half a second, then returned to normal, too fast. "You talked to Briggs?" "Yeah. He offered me 50 grand. Silence. Victoria suddenly looked uncomfortable. Interesting. My father slowly exhaled. And I said no. Something strange happened then. For a moment, just one moment, my father looked worried, not angry, worried. Then came the sentence that made alarm bells go off in my head. "That was a mistake." I stared at him. "Excuse me?" He stepped forward. "This property isn't worth keeping. Sell it." Simple, cold, direct. No explanation. No pretending anymore. Just pressure. I almost laughed. Hours ago, I probably would have listened. 30 years of trying to please him would have made me cave. But today something shifted. No. The room went still. Victoria blinked. Walter stayed silent. My father slowly tilted his head. "No? I'm keeping it." His expression darkened. "Daniel, you don't understand what you're dealing with." That sentence hit differently, because suddenly, this wasn't about a broken house. This was fear. his fear. And for the first time in my life, I saw it. Richard Harper wasn't in control. Not fully. What exactly am I dealing with? I asked quietly. He hesitated. Tiny pause. Tiny mistake. Then he sighed. Liability. Costs. Taxes. Developers. Problems. Everything sounded rehearsed. Too clean. Too prepared. Victoria stepped in. Honey's just trying to help, she said with that fake sympathy voice. You've always struggled financially, Daniel. There it was, the insult hidden as concern. Classic Victoria. I smiled slightly. Funny enough, it didn't hurt this time. Because suddenly, I saw the game. They wanted something. Badly. And desperate people make mistakes. I'll manage, I said. My father's patience cracked slightly.
You think this is some opportunity? His voice sharpened. That house is falling apart. So fix it. The words slipped out before I thought. And wow, that landed. His expression changed instantly, like I had broken some invisible script, because I wasn't supposed to push back. I was supposed to fail. Always fail. That was the role they gave me. The forgotten son. The weak one. The easy one. But for once, I wasn't playing along. Victoria stepped closer to him, maybe trying to calm him down. Then she said something strange. Richard, maybe we should just tell him. Silence. My father turned toward her immediately. Sharp. Cold. No. Interesting. Very interesting. Tell me what? I looked between them. What aren't you telling me? Neither answered. That silence? Loud. Dangerously loud. Then my father straightened his coat, like he made a decision. Fine, he said calmly. You want to keep the house? Keep it. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a card. Not Briggs. Another one. A law firm. If you change your mind, call. Then he turned to leave. Just like that. Too easy. Way too easy. Because Richard Harper never gave up that quickly. Not unless he already had another plan. At the door, he stopped, looked back, and said something that made my stomach twist. Some things are buried for a reason. Then he walked downstairs. Victoria followed. But before she left the hallway, she looked at me strangely, almost guilty, then whispered, "Be careful," and left. The front door slammed. Silence again. Walter didn't move. Neither did I. Finally, I spoke. What the hell was that? Walter looked exhausted. That, he said quietly, was fear. I looked downstairs. He's hiding something. Walter nodded. Big. Then he sat down heavily, hands shaking slightly. You really want the truth? I turned toward him. Yes. He hesitated, long enough to make me nervous, then finally said, 10 years ago. Someone disappeared. My stomach dropped. What? Walter swallowed hard. A man named Thomas Reed. Worked with your father. Lawyer. He handled land contracts. Cold moved through me. And? Walter looked toward the hidden compartment. Last person seen arguing with him? He paused. Richard Harper. I stared at him. No. Walter nodded slowly.
Then Thomas vanished. Police never proved anything. But around here, people talked. Always. I felt sick. This couldn't be real. This was my father. Cruel? Sure. Cold? Absolutely. But this? No. No way. Right? Then Walter said something even worse. Thomas Reed used to come to this house. A long silence followed, because suddenly, that metal box felt heavier, more dangerous, and I couldn't stop thinking one terrifying question. What exactly had my father hidden here? Then my phone buzzed. Suddenly, one bar, one message, unknown number, just 6 words. Leave the house before midnight. My blood ran cold. Walter looked at me. What? I slowly showed him the screen. His face lost color immediately. Then he whispered something I barely heard. They know you found it.